Well, that was definitely something that I was not expecting this weekend to happen. I was expecting it to happen at some point, but, always didn't expect it to happen to the Colorado Rockies. But it was bound to happen at some point. It definitely was. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and this is the first time in a while that we're recapping a Phillies series loss. This is the first time the Phillies have lost a series since April 3rd. Those first two series to start the MLB season against the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. And summarize this entire three-game set. Offense wasn't there. Offense was not there whatsoever. Yeah, they scored 8 runs in yesterday's ball game in the epic comeback in the ninth inning. But, grand scheme of things, your offense showed up for 1 inning in this entire series, and that was the top of the ninth inning in last night's win. Friday night's loss, which was definitely a heartbreaking loss because you should have won that ball game many, 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 many times. Should have won it many times. Your two lone runs came from two solo shots, one from Nick Castellanos and one from Edmundo Sosa, who continues to be absolutely fantastic in replace of Trey Turner since he's been on the injured list. And there's also some updates on Trey Turner and feeling some soreness in the hamstring, so the Phillies are gonna, take back a little bit of the rehab stints that he's been doing or the training that he's been doing on the field, just being precautionary with this entire thing with the hamstring situation. So most likely he won't be back around until that 6-week timetable that he discussed when he was first, he went down with the injury. But yeah, the first game of the series, two solo shots. Those were your lone RBIs. Christopher Sanchez battled. He definitely did. Your bullpen was doing its job. Jose Alvarado in the ninth inning gets the first 2 outs. Final out of the ball game. Here comes a pinch hitter in Jacob Stallings, and just first pitch fastball. Heater right. Inside part of the plate, and Jacob Stallings just sends one into the Colorado Knights, and the ball just carried out of the ballpark, and all of a sudden the game is tied down to the Rockies' final out. And the Phillies, they had their chances in extra innings 100%. They had bases loaded in the top of the 10th inning. They don't score. And Ruiz, who comes out in the bottom of the 10th inning for the Phillies to pitch, he manages to go scoreless there to send it at the top of the 11th, but the Phillies didn't score in the top of the 11th either. Then Gregory Soto comes out for the bottom of the 11th, and eventually, if you're the Phillies, if you go scoreless in 2 of the extra innings with the ghost runner, you can't expect to win the ball game. That's just bottom line there. Someone was eventually going to score, and sadly, Gregory Soto was just gonna, not. You just weren't going to have 2 straight innings of scoreless baseball in the extras. That just wasn't going to happen. And sadly, that was the case. And sadly, that was the game that you dropped. And yes, could that game have been different if Bryce Harper wasn't tossed? Because once again, we don't watch Major League Baseball for the umpires, because Bryce Harper in the top of the first inning on Friday's ball game, he didn't like the strike zone. He didn't like a few of the strikes that were called in the first at bat. So he just says to the umpire, hey, what's the strike zone going to look like for the rest of the night? And the umpire just basically shrugged him off, didn't do anything. And Bryce just tries to ask him again. And then the ump tossed him. And then it's just like, there's no arguing, yelling from Bryce Harper at all during that entire conversation before he gets ejected. That's just an umpire being soft and not having a feel for the game. And it's really frustrating in that situation. Yeah, you don't want Bryce getting thrown out in the first inning of a ball game, but seriously, that just shows you how soft Major League umpires are. It's just a disgrace. It really is. We don't go to Major League Baseball games to watch the boys in blue. We just don't do that. We don't go to watch Angel Hernandez. We don't go to watch Joe West. We don't go to watch any of these guys. Lance Diaz, all these guys. We don't. We don't. We go to see the people that are playing and making a bunch of millions of dollars to play on the diamond, not the guys that are calling outs and balls and strikes. We don't do that. So, to whatever Bryce Harper called him, what was 120, 130, whatever the name of the umpire, the number of the umpire was, like, the balls on this dude just to not even give Bryce Harper the light of day and just yanks him. Yeah, Bryce Harper tossed his helmet down after the strikeout. There's no reason to eject him. There just isn't. Why are you having that short of a leash It's just kind of embarrassing. It really is. It really just kind of embarrassing just in that situation. Yes, the game 100% probably would have been different in those extra inning situations if Bryce Harper was in the ball game and not Johan Rojas in Bryce Harper's spot. So that definitely was the difference there, but you still had other guys in the lineup that can drive in runs, and sadly those guys didn't show up, which resulted in the loss. But then you also got to go to, Jose Alvarado. You can't be allowing a home run to Jacob Stallings out of all people with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth inning because, if you just get Jacob Stallings out, you win the ball game and you win the series at the end of the day. And we're not having this discussion, but sadly that's the case. Game two, once again, basically for the majority of the game, the offense did not show up, and then you get into that top of the ninth inning where the offense does. Edmundo Sosa drives in Brandon Marsh with a triple. Then Garrett Stubbs gives the Phillies the lead. Bryce Harper with the opposite field 3-run shot, and they just kept tacking on runs, and then you eventually win the ball game. Everything was all great and dandy. It was very exciting. And then for today's ball game, Ranger Suarez struggled in the beginning in the first 2 innings, and the offense really was just lifeless the entire time. Ranger did settle down, which I will give him the benefit of the doubt there. And yeah, Ranger was due to have a very sloppy outing, and go figure, a pitcher that relies on his command and his control struggled in Coors Field. So yeah, that's a coincidence, I think, not situation right there. So I expect Ranger Suarez to bounce back in his very next start. And the same thing with Aaron Nola from last night's ball game. He definitely battled as well. He gave you 6 innings. So it was one of those similar situations where I think, well, it's a guy that, relies on his command and his control of the strike zone regardless of his velocity. And, both Ranger and Aaron Nola showed signs of struggling in the Coors Field atmosphere. And we all know that Coors is where pitchers go to die. So I'm not shocked in the slightest at that. Your pitchers battled. I'm not really looking into the series and blaming the starting pitching. Yeah, Ranger Suarez did struggle, but the main thing that I am looking at this entire series is the offense. The offense is the reason why you dropped this series. That is basically it. And no, this is not me overreacting. This is not me saying, oh, here comes the losing stretch. Up, here comes this when they come back down. The reality, no. No, I'm not saying that whatsoever. Yeah, I'm annoyed that they dropped the series to the Colorado Rockies, but then I'm also trying to be realistic at the same time, is where that the Phillies were eventually going to lose a series. It just was the case. It just was the case how much we just didn't want to admit it. The Phillies have been winning so many series in a row, sweeping so many teams, and, just getting all these wins in so much succession to where they won so many series straight where we forgot what it was like to lose a series. Seriously, like I said, the last time this Phillies team lost a series was the second series of the season. That's basically over a month and a half ago. So we're talking about a month and a half since the Phillies last lost a series. And this is the first time since. So for people that want to overreact and saying that, oh, here comes the terrible times now, it's 162 games for a reason. There's ebbs and there's flows. The offense didn't show up in this series. I'm sure they're very frustrated with themselves. Now they're going to go to the San Francisco Giants. Yep, it is a ballpark where this Phillies team historically struggles in. We'll see how they respond to that. I believe Taijuan Walker is going to be on the pitcher on the mound for the Phillies tomorrow, and I think it's going to be Zack Wheeler. Then I'm assuming it's going to be Christopher Sanchez. So yeah, pitching-wise, Zack Wheeler, should be in your favor. Taijuan Walker definitely isn't in your favor. And then Christopher Sanchez, depending on which version of Sanchez you get, yeah, the offense is going to have to show up in this series, and they're going to have to wake up. That's 100%. Really, if I'm just looking at this entire lineup right now, the only person that I'm somewhat, I would say, concerned about, and this is not because he's still getting on base, he's driving in runs. It's just the power that we're just not seeing, and that's from Kyle Schwarber. Now, I'm not going to go full panic mode on Kyle Schwarber whatsoever, because when the clock turns June and he just starts going electric with the home runs, then it was just bound to happen at some point. But if we eventually, because we are inching closer and closer to the month of June, that's when Schwarber is supposed to wake up with the power. And if he doesn't do that, that's when I start to get concerned. But it's just something to think about right now, because he hasn't hit a home run in a while. I think he's been stuck on 9 home runs for a very long time at this point. I think it's been a few weeks. think it's been a few weeks since he last hit a home run, so he is way overdue for a stretch of monster home runs. Like I said, we're almost turning the calendar to June, so that is when Schwarber is supposed to wake up in terms of that. So we're just going to have to wait and see, but it's just something to think about right now. It definitely is. But in terms of guys in the lineup right now, I'm not worried about JT. He's still hitting the ball very well. Bryce Harper, he's still, we really haven't seen that huge Bryce Harper hot streak, but he's been more hot than cold, I would say, recently than not. Alec Boehm, I think his average is starting to dip a little bit, and his numbers with runners in score position is starting to dip a little bit. Well, he was just so elite with runners in scoring position. Those numbers would eventually even out, even though I still think he's very good with runners in scoring position. Sometimes you're just not always going to come up with the hit, and he was getting so many hits with runners in scoring position in rapid succession. Sometimes you're just not going to get those hits multiple times in a row, and sadly, that's been the case with Alec Boehm. Nick Castellanos is what he is. Bryson Stott, since going on his hot stretch this month, he's cooled down a little bit, but I think he's still been very fine at the plate. Edmundo Sosa's been absolutely fantastic, so I got no complaints about there. Brandon Marsh's numbers have definitely come back down to earth, but he's still a very serviceable player. Whit Merrifield is Whit Merrifield. He's washed at this point. And then Johan Rojas, whenever he can provide something, hopefully he can. And then Cody Clemens, Pache, they come in and out of the lineup at this point. So it's really just the main guys right now until Trey Turner comes back. And yeah, that's basically it for this series. The Atlanta Braves, I believe they also lost the series to the Pittsburgh Pirates. So at the end of the day, it's not the worst thing in the world, but also there was a little bit of injury with the Atlanta Braves. I wouldn't say a little bit of injury, a major injury with Ronald Acuna Jr. He went down with a non-contact injury on the base paths and it looked really bad. So hopefully everything is okay with him. Hopefully it is not another ACL injury, because that just kind of ruins a lot of stuff with the rivalry with the Braves, because, you want them with a healthy lineup. You want them with their stars all there. And I know Acuna so far this season hasn't been playing at his best, but, he's still one of the best players in the league. And it just sucks seeing one of the best players in the league go down with an injury. And hopefully it's not too bad, but it did look very bad, especially since it was a non-contact injury. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens at that point. I just hope it's not another ACL injury. I just hope that's the case. But just going to the general point of the Braves, they lost the series to the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates are also below 500, so you'll lose series to teams sometimes that are below 500. It's just happened to be one of those series. So you just got to pack it up, move on, and just take it on the chin, basically. It just is what it is. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to go ballistic. I'm not going to overreact. There's no point of it. There's no point of it. This Phillies team has proven time and time again this season that they're one of the best teams in baseball. You're going to drop series at some point. It's just, you're not going to win every single series of it during the season. That's just so unrealistic. It just is. See how they respond against the San Francisco Giants, and we'll move on from there. That's basically it. That is basically it on that standpoint. And yeah, if you want to go over these games a little bit here, on Friday, we all know what happened there. Like I said, the 2 runs from Nick Castellanos and Edmundo Sosa. Christopher Sanchez battled. He went 5 1/3 innings, allowed a lot of hits. And then the bullpen basically did their thing, besides, Jose Alvarado allowing that home run in the bottom of the 9th inning to Jacob Stallings. So that sucks at the end of the day. But the offense, they went 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Lineup-wise, Kyle Schwarber was 1 for 5. JT was 2 for 5. Bryce Harper, he got ejected from the game, so he didn't really play. Johan Rojas, he went 0 for 4 in that spot. Alec Boehm 0 for 5. Nick Castellanos 1 for 5 with the solo shot. Bryson Stott 0 for 4. Sosa 2 for 3 with an RBI on the solo shot. Marsh eventually came in the pinch hit. Merrifield 0 for 2 with 2 walks. Pache 0 for 3. And then Cody Clemens came in the pinch hit. He went 1 for 1. And that was basically it all from that game. You had chances in the extra innings with bases loaded, and you just didn't come up at all. So there's really not much else with that game besides, Jose Alvarado blowing it and the offense just not showing up. And really, you could say that basically for this entire series. For Saturday night's game, you win that 8-4 in the top of the 9th inning, basically. Aaron Nola, he definitely battled. He went 6 innings, allowed 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 runs in total, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts on 103 pitches. The bullpen-wise, Seranthony Dominguez, he allowed a hit and then basically, managed to get out of the inning unscathed. Ruiz, he allowed a hit and he allowed a walk, and he managed to get out of his 8th inning unscathed on 21 pitches. And then Spencer Turnbull closed the game out in the 9th inning. He did allow a run, though, so take it for what it's worth right there. And batting wise, Kyle Schwarber, he was perfect at the plate. He was 3 for 3 with a walk. Bryson Stott was 1 for 4 in the 2-hole. Bryce Harper was 2 for 5 with four RBIs with a 3-run shot in the 9th inning. Alec Boehm, he was 2 for 5. Nick Castellanos, he was 1 for 5 with an RBI. Brandon Marsh, he was 0 for 3 with a walk. Edmundo Sosa, he was 1 for 4 with the RBI triple. Garrett Stubbs, he was 2 for 4 with an RBI, the go-ahead RBI in the 9th. Johan Rojas, he was 0 for 1. Then Clemens came in the pinch hit. He went 0 for 1, and then Pache came into play center field eventually. So, in terms of runners in scoring position, the Phillies went 4 for 8 there, and all of their runs basically came in the top of the 9th inning. Then take a 1-0 lead in the top of the first. Then Nola basically allows the Rockies to tie it up. Rockies take the lead in the second. They go up 3-1 in the third. And then the Phillies, they make it 3-2 in the top of the fifth off of a Schwarber sac fly. And then the Rockies basically it was 3-2 for the entire game at this point. The Phillies in the top of the 7th inning, they had a couple of runners on. They weren't able to do anything there. And then you go to that top of the 9th inning. Brandon Marsh leads off with the walk. Sosa triples down the right field line, which scores Marsh, and that ties the ball game up. Garrett Stubbs gets the RBI single, the go-ahead RBI single basically. Then Cody Clemens does grind into a double play, so that kind of ruined things there. But then Kyle Schwarber got a double. Then Bryson Stott worked a 2-out walk. And then Bryce Harper, during the pitching change, he goes the opposite way, just clears the fence for a 3-run shot, puts the Phillies up 7-3. Alec Boehm then doubles. And then Nick Castellanos drives him home with an RBI single. And then Turnbull closed the game out. So you came back from there and you won the ball game. So, hey, you had a chance to win the series at this afternoon's game, and sadly, that just wasn't the case. You lose 5-2. Ranger Suarez, he allows 4 earned runs, 5 runs in total, 4 walks, so he wasn't really commanding the strike zone as well. He had 9 strikeouts on 100 pitches. He did settle back into the ball game, but basically in the first couple of innings where he allowed those 5 earned runs, he just wasn't controlling the strike zone at all, and that was the downfall right there for Ranger. He did settle in and go 6, but you can't really, it was the first bad start this year for Ranger, basically, and he still found a way to settle in, but he didn't put his team in a good enough spot. But the offense also didn't show up either. That's basically it right there. Looking at the lineup for today's ball game, this afternoon specifically, Kyle Schwarber, he goes 0 for 3 with a walk. JT goes 1 for 4. Bryce Harper goes 0 for 4. Alec Boehm 1 for 4 with an RBI. Bryson Stott 0 for 4. Nick Castellanos 0 for 4. Brandon Marsh, he was on base all 3 times. He went 2 for 2 with a walk. Edmundo Sosa, he goes 0 for 3. Rojas goes 1 for 2 with an RBI. Then Cody Clemens pinch hitting went 0 for 1. The Phillies barely had any chances with runners in scoring position. They went 2 for 3 there. They left 4 runners on base. They only had 5 hits the entire game. So, yeah, the offense just wasn't there. And when the Phillies did score their runs, it was in the 4th inning when they finally got on the board with Alec Boehm RBI single. And then in the top of the 5th, Rojas with the 2-out RBI single. And that was basically the entire offense. Top of the 6th inning, Phillies go down 1-2-3. Marsh in the top of the 7th reached it on a 2-out infield single, but nothing happened there. Top of the 8th inning, another infield single, nothing happened there. And then in the 9th inning, they go down 1-2-3. So, is what it is. It is what it is at this point. Like I said, you're not going to win every single series. That's just completely unrealistic. It's not going to happen like that. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And you really can't control it. So, they fall in the series. Yep, they fall in the series to a bad opponent. But, like I said, they were eventually going to lose a series at some point. That's just bottom line there. That's just the way it is. But, you gotta, take it on the chin, throw it in the trash, and then move on. Because you play tomorrow afternoon. Well, for us, it's in the evening, but for where they're playing, it's in the afternoon. They're playing in San Francisco on Memorial Day. They play at 5 o'clock. It'll be Taijuan Walker on the mound against Blake Snell. Blake Snell so far has been terrible for San Francisco. He is 0-3 with an 11 ERA. He has not been good. In all of his outings so far, his last outing was on May 22nd against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He only went 3 1/3 innings. So far, he isn't fully stretched out yet. He allowed 4 earned runs to the Pirates. He allowed 5 earned runs to the Diamondbacks. He allowed 7 earned runs to the Tampa Bay Rays. And he allowed 3 earned runs in his first start against the Washington Nationals. 5 strikeouts, 3 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts, 5 strikeouts, 4 walks. That's what happens when you spend all that time waiting to sign a contract and then you're not fully stretched out. So I'm not sure what the Giants are going to do in terms of that tomorrow, but we'll wait and see. And then Zack Wheeler, he'll be on the mound on Tuesday night against Mason Black. He is 0-1 with an 8.79 ERA. He did pitch against the Phillies in that Monday game, in that 4-game series. He went 4 1/3 innings and allowed 5 earned runs, so the Phillies are very familiar with him. So he struggled in that appearance, so the Phillies should be very familiar with that. And then on Wednesday afternoon at 3:45 will be Christopher Sanchez going up against Kyle Harrison. He is 4-1 with a 3.9 ERA. He's given up some runs in the past couple of starts, so we'll see what happens from there. But we'll just see. We'll just see. And then you have the day off on Thursday. Then you're back home for a 6-game homestand against the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers. So we'll see what happens from there. So basically, after this series against San Francisco and St. Louis, this is when you're going to be starting to see a lot of tougher competition. So hopefully they're not going to be hitting a run at this point. We'll see how they bounce back in San Francisco. That's all you can really say at this point. We'll see how they bounce back in San Francisco. And in terms of the standings right now, still in a comfortable spot up in front of the Atlanta Braves. You're 38-16. You're 6 games ahead of the Braves. They lost that series to the Pittsburgh Pirates, so basically good teams lose the bad teams. It just happens. It just happens. Some people don't want to admit it, but it just happens. Some people want to discredit the Phillies for beating bad teams, but sometimes good teams also lose the bad teams. It just happens. So we'll see. We'll see. Not going to overreact. I don't think it's necessary, but people will definitely overreact. It's just, it's just what it is. It's just what it is. Yeah. We do have a voicemail here. We have a couple of voicemails from the first 2 games from yesterday and today, but I guess today is more relevant because they lost the series, so we're gonna stick with that. It's from Sean, so let's go to that before we end it off here and enjoy the rest of Memorial Day weekend. So, Sean, what do you got here?
Well, as exhilarating as last night's game was, today was coma-inducing. I'd like to punch both Tom McCarthy and Ruben Amaro Jr. in the mouth because they've harped the entire series about how basic. Well, the Phillies really couldn't lay a bat on any of those guys.
Oh boy.
I mean, I'll tip the cap to Ranger Suarez today. Struggled early, but did more than enough to keep his team relevant in it. The bullpen did their job. The offense just didn't do theirs. I mean, nobody really hit the ball this entire series, maybe Edmundo Sosa, but they had the one big inning. I mean, the other couple games, they didn't show up. The Braves get a game back today, and what worries me is, you go into another stadium now that's been a house of horrors for the Phillies over the years. And you have Taijuan Walker pitching tomorrow, so all bets are off when Taijuan. It's a weird series, but they got to find a way to get some runs, especially tomorrow with Walker going.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it right now. It's definitely frustrating that they lost the series, especially in a ballpark like Coors Field, where the ball just really flies. It's just sometimes your offense just didn't show up this entire series. That's basically what it was. Besides for 1 inning, your offense really was just non-existent. And I don't expect that to be the case for an extended period of time. This was, sometimes you just have a dud. And that's basically what this series was. Sometimes your offense just has a dud. That's going to happen over the course of a 162 season. And yeah, you're going to have your ebbs and you're going to have your flows. It's just how you respond from that. And yeah, we're going to have to see how this Phillies team responds for it. Yes, San Francisco has definitely been a ballpark that the Phillies have struggled in over the past couple of seasons, but I think this Phillies team is different. We all said the same thing when they were playing the Texas Rangers, the other series, that, they haven't beaten the Texas Rangers in so many years, and what happened? The Phillies swept them. And yeah, granted, I don't expect them to sweep the San Francisco Giants again. They swept them in a 4-game series, so taking 2 out of 3 basically is, necessary in my honest opinion. We're just going to wait and see. Yeah, the offense is definitely going to show up for Taijuan Walker, because it's not guaranteed that Taijuan Walker is going to have a clean outing. So yeah, the offense is going to have to show up. We're going to see what Zack Wheeler is going to be like on Tuesday, and then Christopher Sanchez. But the offense, that is the major key right here, especially, tomorrow with Blake Snell on the mound. Blake Snell has not been good since, basically he's signing that contract with San Francisco, and he really just hasn't been good because he isn't fully stretched out. So that's something to take advantage of, but knowing the Phillies' luck, that'll be when Blake Snell's at his best. But got to find a way to overpower it. Got to find a way to power through it. And right now, just throw this series in the trash, move on to San Francisco, and that's basically it. It's basically it from there. I'm not worried. I don't think anybody should be worried. And to the Braves' point, what Sean said, oh, the Braves got a game back today. The Braves also lost the series to Pittsburgh. So I'm not worried in the slightest. I'm not worried in the slightest at all. Yeah, they played a 3-game series against Pittsburgh. They lost 2 of 3. They lost 11-5 on Friday. They lost 4-1 yesterday, and they won 8-1 today. Their next series is against Washington. But we're going to have to wait and see what happens with Ronald Acuna in terms of that injury. He's going to have an MRI. So we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with the MRI. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, but it did look very bad, especially since it was non-contact. But yeah, in terms of the Phillies, just bounce back. Let's bounce back. That's all I got to do. So that'll do it for tonight, everybody. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the Memorial Day weekend tomorrow and everything there. We'll most likely have a recap tomorrow, in terms of that. In terms of for the rest of the games in the Giants series besides tomorrow, it'll probably be because I think Tuesday is a 9 o'clock game or something like that. So we'll probably just pair Tuesday's game with Wednesday's recap, just do something like that, just in case that the game goes way too late on Tuesday night. So just wait and see. You'll see something pop up in your subscription feed, bearing anything else. So yeah, that'll do it for tonight. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. I'll see you next time.